Let's get right into this. Let's talk about what's happening. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's still a lot yet to be reported. And of course, although we're monitoring things on a week-to-week basis, we know that real estate is a lagging indicator of the economy, and some of the information is just not available yet. It just hasn't been compiled. But again, I'm going to do my best to help you guys understand what's happening right now. But, you know, as businesses across the country have been mandated to close due to the shelter in place, we are now seeing the first unemployment numbers come out, which were unfortunately a lot higher than we expected. We were thinking that it was going to be somewhere around 2 million people that filed for unemployment. You know what the real number was? 3.28 million people for the week ending in March 21st. That is the most claims ever filed in a single week in history. And so the challenge is, you know, we don't know how long this is going to last, and we don't know how these numbers are going to look down the road. We just don't have solid numbers to report locally yet. But, you know, people are asking right now, well, when are prices going to start coming down? And I don't think you should expect home prices to start to plunge, you know, by the double digits as they did after the Great Recession. I think what you have to understand is that, you know, in the last downturn in 2008, there were way more properties for sale. We had an overabundance of new construction, and we had a bunch of foreclosures, and there were a bunch of qualified buyers for them. But of course, as things changed, the market went down, and there were a lot of external factors and headwinds that we just don't have right now. This time around, there's a severe shortage of housing for sale, not just locally, but across the country. You know, builders haven't been putting up enough inventory to meet demand for years at this point. And so, I don't think there's going to be this huge wave of foreclosures because buyers homeowners are in a better position right now. We have more equity than we did, and we're not, you know, taking advantage of loan programs that are so wide open that you could just tell a bank how much you make and tell a bank how much assets you have and still get a mortgage. And it would be fine because in 6 months from now, the property is going to be worth 10% more than what you bought it for, and you can sell it and just trade up and up and up like so many people were doing until, of course, the market crashed, and then they realized that they were overexposed. So I don't think we're going to have as much of a challenge as we did in 2008, but there are, of course, some things that could happen that are outside of our control that we haven't even anticipated yet, or have anticipated but we don't think will happen that frankly could make 2008 look like a cakewalk. But we've also got, federal and state governments, along with some banks that are rolling out forbearances and, the payment protection or the payroll protection plan, all these different programs, plus the stimulus of, $1,200 a household. And so if you think prices are going to start declining sharply like they did after the recession of 2008, the market dynamics are just much different this time around. And I think you'll be disappointed if you say, all right, well, we all knew that the bubble had to burst at some point. I guess this is it. I guess this is when things start to tank. Because realistically, we've had 8 years of solid price appreciation in our market. If you look at the first 2 months of 2020 compared to the first 2 months of 2019, prices were up 9%. I mean, that's a lot. But here's the challenge. We're expecting closings to drop about 35% nationwide compared to the fourth quarter of 2019, which historically is not a strong quarter. That's the last quarter of the year. The strongest months for closings, at least in our market, have always been May and June, and to an extent July, because of all the people that put their homes on the market right around now, that go under contract in April and May, that close in May and June and July. So we're expecting this to really hit sales pretty hard. And you have to think about, where are the hardest hit areas because of this issue? I think it's areas with really high percentages of jobs in tourism and leisure and hospitality. Those are the areas that are really hitting this hard. Of course, there are some other subcategories of our economy that are being hit by this as well. But I don't think that we're looking at this sharp decline in pricing. What I think is going to happen, well, I guess let me say this. I want to read some local stats first because I want you guys to understand what's been happening week over week for the last week of February, the first week of March compared to the last week of March. And if we look at the difference between February and March of this year, we had 6% increase in new listings that hit the market in March compared to February. The number of properties that went under contract stayed basically the same. In February, we put 1,890 properties under contract. In March, last month, we put 1,869. So essentially no change there. But closings were up 26% last month compared to February. So we've got this reduction in months' supply of inventory, which was what we talk about on the show as a way of measuring the health of a real estate market. Is it a seller's market? Is it a balanced market? Is it a buyer's market? And the reality is we're putting basically the same number of listings on the board, and we are selling the same amount of listings as we were last month. But here's the real kicker, is showings. And this is interesting. This is something that I monitor very closely. If, when someone lists their house with me, we're talking about this stuff on a weekly basis. I run these stats for my listings, and we get really granular on how this change in the market is impacting them in their specific area, in their specific price range. And so if you look at showings, as an example, the first week of March, we had 6,000 showings in our market in 1 week. The last week of March, we had 2,700. So it was down significantly. But even with this reduction in showings, we still are maintaining the same amount of contracts being written and accepted on a monthly basis, which is great. I mean, we still have all this pent-up demand. Buyers still want to buy. They still want to take advantage of low interest rates. And as a result of that, the other thing that I monitor is price reductions. How many people are proactively trying to get ahead of this thing and reduce their price? Because we've got, if you think about it, fair market value right now is a straight line. I don't see prices going up right now. And I say that because I don't think there's enough consumer confidence in our market for a buyer to look at a property and say, yes, I am willing to pay more for that house than the same home that sold last week or last month. I just think there's too much economic uncertainty for a buyer to willingly pay more than what something just sold for. So in my opinion, right now, prices are kind of flat. There might be some areas or some unique properties in which it's priced effectively, it's in great condition, it's something that multiple buyers want, and yes, there's a bidding war. We're still seeing that on some of our listings, believe it or not. But price reductions remain unchanged between February and March because it's clear that we are absorbing that inventory. We're not yet really all that impacted by COVID-19. Now, give that some time. That will start to change. Again, you have to remember that with all this unemployment that we're going to be seeing over the next weeks and likely months to come as businesses fight to survive, those people that are laid off are going to have a challenge maintaining their mortgage payments. And they more than likely have equity in their home if they bought their home a few years ago, which so many people have, which means that they can sell it and they can still walk away with some money in their pocket after the sale, after expenses, after commissions, and be okay. What I don't see happening in droves are a ton of short sales and a ton of foreclosures hitting our market. Now, we might see an uptick in that. Don't get me wrong. And I think we likely will. But I think it's going to be marginal. It's not going to be something that crushes the momentum that we have in our market. The momentum is already established, and I think it's going to start to wane a little bit as these financial situations are experienced by individuals, not just here locally, regionally, nationally. Think about all the people that move here from different areas. I mean, some of these markets are shut down. Thankfully, in Charleston at least, we were classified as an essential service. And, there are plenty of people that, when we call them or when they request more information on a property, ironically, we give them the information and then they complain that we're working right now. Moving doesn't necessarily stop. Yes, it slows down. People that don't have to buy or that don't have to sell, that are just unsure about things. It's not our job to persuade you that everything is okay, like a lot of agents are going to be doing over the next several weeks and months. They're going to downplay the issue. What you need is reliable information to make informed decisions. And that's what we've been doing with our clients and with the folks that have been calling, is we have just been the person that is the go-to for reliable information so that they know how to plan for the process of buying or selling, whether that be now or 3 months from now or 6 months from now. But you need to have the proper information. You need to really wrap your head around how this is going to impact you specifically due to the dynamics within your specific area and within your specific price range. And the challenge is I just don't have enough time on this program to go through all those different areas and speak my truth about what I think is going to happen in all those different areas. So if you'd like more information on what's going to happen in your area, what you should be doing or thinking about, or what we can be keeping an eye on for you in the form of data and trends, then it's just as simple as picking up the phone and giving us a call. The number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. You can visit me online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And be sure to check out our podcast. If you're sitting at home and thinking of some things to do, check out iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all those different media sources have our podcast, The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. So don't forget to check that out. Stick around for more of The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here.